Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and on today's video we will be taking a look at the MSI Nvidia Geforce RTX 4070 Super. Specifically, this is the Gaming X Slim Edition in white, as you can see. Now, this card is available in white and also in black, and there's actually quite a few different versions available from MSI at the moment, especially in this new Super range from Nvidia, all of which are upgraded and enhanced and also potentially going to be saving us a few quid. So when that happened, of course, my ears pricked up and I'm all in. So I've been very fortunate that MSI have actually sent this out to us for review purposes prior to the actual launch day. So if there's any errors or omissions, then please do excuse them. And in terms of pricing, I cannot give you definitive pricing on this specific model at the time of recording, although I will be updating the links in the video description with all the latest info as it becomes available. Now, this isn't actually a reference type card. This is what is known as an OC, or an overclocked edition, or an enhanced version, so it does come with a very slight price premium. Now again, I don't know the exact price premium, but from what I've been led to believe, the Founders Edition cards will be on the market for somewhere in the region of about £580 here in the UK on launch day, and this particular model could potentially be in and around the £650 mark. Again, that is to be confirmed. So the question you're going to be asking is it going to be worth me spending a little bit of extra money to go with a card such as this one? Now, if it is going purely on looks alone, then arguably I would say this looks absolutely stunning with its triple fan design and also a very compact slim edition, taking up only 2 of your PCI Express slots. So this is going to be absolutely perfect for those of you that are building in either mini ITX or micro ATX enclosures, where PCI Express slots are going to be at somewhat of a disadvantage. Obviously, for those of you that are rocking a slightly larger or ATX tower, it's going to look absolutely great and fits in really nicely, as you're probably seeing from some of the B-roll from when I've actually had this installed in my PC behind me, and I've been doing some benchmarks to see how well it performs. So let's quickly go through the specifications of this so you can see what it's all about. Then we'll take a look at the box and some of the other highlights of this particular card. We'll then be taking a look at some benchmarks. Now, the benchmarks you may find slightly unusual. Now, the reason I've done this is because there's going to be a ton of reviews out on day one telling you about this card, and they'll do the usual thing, so 1080p, 1440, 4K. But I wanted to actually stretch this thing's legs a little bit. So I've gone purely for 1440p ultra wide, so that's 3440 by 1440p, and also 4K results. Now, there is going to be a mixture of DLS being on, FSR, those kinds of things. I will let you know in the individual results which ones are actually used. In this particular round of results, I've been taking advantage of primarily the GeForce Experience. So if you go into the GeForce Experience, you can click on Optimize Settings, and basically the Nvidia software will do everything for you. No need to go through and fine tune things. It will use that AI learning and actually work out what is best for your system and this particular card. Anyway, we'll get to that a little bit later on. So what makes this slightly different from the 4070, which we've all seen before? So this is using the AD104-350A1 die, which is on the 5nm process. Also, base clocks on this specific version, 2652 MHz. But realistically, actually, in gaming, you will see this card, at least you should do, giving the right thermals, it boosting up to 2835 MHz, which I've seen on numerous occasions, and it pretty much sustains that in a lot of games. So actually quite a significant boost over the reference model. When it comes to the CUDA cores, so these have been increased as well, so we've got about 20% more, so we're now rocking 7,168 CUDA cores. Also, it's running with 21 gigabit per second GDDR6X memory made by Micron, and this is a 12 gigabyte card across a 192-bit bus. When it comes to outputs on this, we've got 4 outputs, all of which can be used simultaneously. We're looking at 3 display ports, DisplayPort 1.4, and also 1 HDMI, that's HDMI 2.1a, supporting variable refresh rate. With this specific card, you do see a slight increase in actual wattage. So the reference card is going to be using somewhere in the region of 220 watts. This one is using about 240, 245, and if you look closely at the benchmark results, when we take a look at later, you'll see the wattages used in the top left-hand corner. The very minuscule increase in wattage I think is worth it for the little bit of extra performance boost, and overall in testing this card has done fantastically, and also at the same time remained extremely quiet and extremely cool. And for that reason, in the benchmarks there will be no real references towards temperatures, although again, if you want to see them, they will be in the top left hand corner. Ultimately, this card generally under full load, under extreme circumstances, you're going to be looking somewhere around about 60 to 65 degrees Celsius, and with the triple fan design, it's going to be absolutely silent. So back to other specifications. So this is obviously compliant with DirectX 12 Ultimate, so all of your modern games are going to run absolutely fine with this. When it comes to length, 307mm, so not absolutely huge, so it's going to fit into most towers. And when it actually comes to weight as well, it's actually relatively lightweight at 970 grams, thereabouts. And also, again, it looks fantastic, very compact, that slim edition, again, giving you a little bit more room in your case should you require it. So other key things, which no doubt you've heard a million times before, but we'll quickly go over some of them. So you've got things like support for DLSS 3, you've also got frame generation in some titles, all those AI features, you've got your tensor cores, ray tracing obviously is one of the key things which differentiates the Nvidia cards from the AMD stack. So if you're kind of into your RTX, really, you kind of got to be looking down the Nvidia route, at least as things stand at the moment. And potentially, if you're a content creator, when it comes to streaming and recording footage, OBS really does love an Nvidia card, as does Premiere Pro. So I think in terms of the market for content creators, it's no surprise why everybody turns to Nvidia. Anyway, that's enough gushing about Nvidia. Let's take a look at this card and see what it's all about. So first of all, on the box, as you can see, this is the Gaming X Slim in white. Now, there's a few different variations of models, like I said before. So you've got the Gaming Slim, you've also got the Gaming X Slim. So the Gaming X has a little bit higher boost clocks. You've also then got other models such as the Trio, you've also got the Supreme and all that kind of stuff as well. There is an entry-level version, which is going to be the Ventus. This is slightly above that, so this is basically the third tier. So basically you've got the Ventus at the bottom, then you've got the Gaming, then you've got the Gaming X, and so on and so on. So this is kind of somewhere towards the middle of the tier. So like I said, DLSS 3, ray tracing, NVIDIA Reflex, and also NVIDIA Studio, again, harking back to those content creation things. RTX 4070 Super, made by NVIDIA, and on the back of the box, it goes through some of the specific things to MSI. So we've got the Trifrozer 3 cooling system, using the TorqueFan 5.0. You've also got airflow control through a really nice big radiator. You've got 4 heat pipes there as well, which you'll be seeing from some B-roll. They're very pretty, very well done. It's actually a very tiny graphics card itself. The bulk of this is basically the cooling. And of course, if you're into your MSI components and peripherals, you can control and make tweaks this in MSI Center. As some of you will know, if you watched this channel before, you know I'm a very keen advocate of the MSI Center. Love it or hate it, for me, it does everything I need it to. And the fact that you can use this graphics card and change things like your addressable RGB and get it all to fit with the rest of your system, and also make changes and also have quick access to MSI Afterburner should you need to. Yeah, it's just a great ecosystem. I really do appreciate it. So when it comes to the unboxing experience, you've seen it already, probably from B-roll, but it is an absolutely spanking looking card. I really do like the look of this. When it comes to white components for PCs, they're actually quite hard to come by, and I think they've done a fantastic job with this. Well, they've incorporated a few different bits as well, so it's predominantly white. You've got a few accents of silver, and also, of course, you've got the obligatory GeForce RTX logo in massive black letters, both on the front and also on the top. Now, we do notice the top plate is actually a silver accent rather than being white. Actually, I quite like this as well. The plate across there doesn't actually do anything in particular. It is purely cosmetic and also for strengthening the design, but it doesn't make contact with anything on the back of the PCB, which no doubt you'll be taking a look at now. The PCB is the customized version for MSI. Again, we've got that AD104-350A1 core right there slap bang in the middle, surrounded by the Micron RAM GDDR6X. And yeah, basically it's a very nice design. All of the pads and the thermal paste, etc., make proper contact with the memory, the VRMs, chokes, etc., etc. No problems there at all. The only thing I did notice actually on this particular version when I took it open is the fact that the heat paste seemed to be a little bit on the crusty side. I would probably suggest if you get one of these, maybe crack it open and change the thermal paste. That is going to be down to the individual. Not sure whether it's just a thing with thermal paste these days, but yeah, it did seem to be a little bit on the crusty side. Although, as you can see in the benchmark results later on, the temperatures were never ever an issue with this card. And again, with those really nice 3 fans on there, it runs so quiet, it's amazing. And actually, it was quieter than the PC fans in my case, so that is saying something. If you do like silence, this is definitely well worth a look. Now, something which is going to be a bone of contention for some of you is the fact that it does use the 12+4 connection, or the 12 volt high power, however you want to call it, which has caused some controversy. Now, if you are planning to get this card and you're concerned, don't be. Most of the graphics cards which have had issues are things like your 4090s, 4080s. The 4080s were very rare, and generally it's down to the cables either not being inserted correctly or just ridiculous amounts of wattage going through it. This thing is drawing at most around about 240 watts, which is way below the 600 watts that that connector is rated for. So rest assured you have got no problems there whatsoever. And also, if you're rocking a power supply which perhaps doesn't have the latest and greatest PCI Express Gen 5 connectivity, don't worry, MSI got you covered straight out of the box with a couple of accessories. The first of which being a rather nice white color-coded PCIe Gen 5 to 8-pin adapter. So you can use that. This does require 2 8-pin connections should you want to use this connection. Again, if your power supply doesn't have it, nice that they've included it, and also nice that it's also in white. As you can see from the B-roll that I've shot, I've been using a black cable which comes with my Thermaltake power supply, but again, if you haven't got one, then this is included. As is another option which really is not necessary at all, and that is a gaming slim support bracket. So this is for supporting your graphics card, just basically a GPU support bracket. But as you can see again from some of the B-roll, this thing fitted in, it's very lightweight, it's very rigid, there was no sag whatsoever. It looked absolutely great and didn't require any additional support to look as good as it does. So we've discussed some specs, we've discussed some of the pricing or potential pricing. Let's take a look and see how it actually performs. So just for a quick recap, this is going to be ultra wide 3440 by 1440p, and also you'll be seeing results of 4K. Now I've tried to push this as best as possible, so we're looking at a mixture here of basically high settings or ultra, if I've been able to manually do it. Otherwise, we're relying on the GeForce experience, just clicking on that optimize button and letting it do its thing. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the games. So we're going to start off things with CS2. This actually runs really nicely on here, so if you're into competitive gaming, but you also want it to look nice, this is going to be no problems at all. So first of all, we'll take a look at CS2 in the ultra wide. So this is using the highest possible settings, Nvidia optimized. Average frame rate, 204.1 FPS, minimum frame rate, 135.7 FPS, maximum frame rate, 265.3 FPS. We've got our 1% lows of 91.5 and 0.1% of 63.6. So over 60 FPS, I'm happy with that. So that is a pretty good shout. And let's take a look at what we're getting under 4K. So this is CS2 4K, highest possible settings, average frame rate, 222.3, minimum frame rate 72.3, maximum frame rate 282.7, 1% lows 79.4, and our 0.1% low frame rate just dipped under that 60 to 44.7 FPS. But overall, an absolutely glorious experience on either monitor. Both were extremely enjoyable, although I must say I actually do prefer playing this on ultra wide, but being into content creation, using a 4K monitor is sometimes preferable, but either way you do it, it's going to be absolutely great and a fantastic experience. So next we're going to take a look at Cyberpunk. So this is Cyberpunk 2077. First of all, we're going to be looking at the ultra wide resolution, again with the Nvidia optimized settings. Average frame rate here of 104.1 FPS, minimum frame rate 80.4, maximum 155.7, 1% lows of 76 FPS, and our 0.1% lows of 11.7. Yeah, a little bit of a dip there, but it wasn't noticeable actually in the benchmark run. So upping the ante a little bit here to 4K. So this is using the Nvidia optimized settings. We've got an average frame rate here of 74.3, a minimum of 48.8, a maximum frame rate of 191.9 FPS, a 1% low of 59.1, and a 0.1 of 10.7. So overall, again, looks great, absolutely fantastic. The settings on this, mind-blowing, and very much to me, it looks like the ray tracing was set to Psycho. Pretty sure that was what the deal was, but again, if you do want to see any of the individual sections redone in depth, please do let us know in that comment section. Next up, we're going to do some zombie slaying in Dead Island 2. So this is the ultra wide results. So again, 3440 by 1440p. High settings with FSR 2.0 set to the quality preset. Our average frame rate here, 131.2 FPS. Minimum frame rate, 96 frames per second. maximum frame rate 187.1, and our 1% lows 68.7, and our 0.1% is 37.6. A great experience, although sadly, for some reason, my AMD capture card, which I'm using to record this footage on OBS in my other system, really struggles with 4K frame rate stuff, so I actually do need this graphics card in my life to make my recordings better. Moving over to 4K, not really a great deal of difference here, so we've got an average of 92.4, minimum of 60.7, maximum frame rate here is 145.4, 1% lows 43.1, and our 0.1% low frame rate is 31.7. Again, this is Dead Island 2 at 4K, high settings with no scaling whatsoever. Now, some of you may have already noticed, but this is in alphabetical order, believe it or not. So next we're going to be looking at Dying Light. So this again is ultra wide, 3440 by 1440p. Nvidia optimized highest settings. So this is basically the entire game cranked to the max. Our average frame rate, 190.3 frames per second. Our minimum frame rate is 133.2. Maximum was 236.3. 1% lows of 98.8. And our 0.1% lows of 57.6, so basically 60 FPS regardless of what you're doing if you're doing the ultra wide settings here. And also if we're upping this to 4K, Dying Light 4K, Nvidia optimized highest settings again, average frame rate here 109.6, minimum frame rate 80.1, our maximum was 139.2, 1% lows of 77.9, and our 0.1% lows at 68.7. So over 60 FPS as our minimum. That was awesome. As with anything, these games, I don't always play them exactly the same areas, but slightly different paths, etc. So there are some deviations from the norm, but overall, that's what you're likely to expect. Okay, so next we'll take a look at Far Cry 6. So again, we're in the ultra wide resolution to start with, high settings, and actually no FSR. Want to see how well it would do with no artificial scaling. So our average frame rate here, 106.1, minimum frame rate, 37.6, maximum frame rate, 131.1, 1% lows of 58.1, and our 0.1% low frame rate of just a measly 2.4 frames per second. Not entirely sure what happened there. It didn't seem obvious, so I don't know where that was. The actual frames per second graph actually looks extremely stable, so yeah, I'm not too sure where that came from. It didn't distract me in any way, shape or form, and even with 1% lows, just around 60 FPS was absolutely fine. So next we're going to take a look at Far Cry 6 4K Ultra with FSR set to the quality preset, so I thought I'd give it a bit of a fighting chance. And actually we're seeing very similar results with 4K as we did in ultra wide, thanks to that FSR and really the raw horsepower of this graphics card. So we're looking at an average frame rate of 114.5, minimum frame rates 42.7, maximum frame rate 125.4, 1% lows 90 FPS, and our 0.1% lows of 43.7. Very playable, very pretty game, looks amazing, and yeah, really does shine on this graphics card. So next, actually a synthetic, so just to break things up a bit, so we've got 3D Mark's Firestrike, so this is just the standard Firestrike version, and we scored a actually pretty high score there of 39,669 points. Absolutely fantastic. And for those of you that are interested, if we take a look at the end result there and do some comparisons, you can actually see where that ends up in terms of other cards on the market. So it's actually better than 99% of all results. So clearly this is a top tier card, as you'd expect if you're spending this amount of money. But what is interesting, if you look at what is going on below in the gaming PC section, we're looking at about 2,000 points difference. And that was with a Ryzen 7 7700X with an RTX 4070, which I actually find quite interesting due to the fact that we're actually using a 4070 Super, and actually my processor is the slower version, so I'm actually using the Ryzen 7 7700 here rather than the 7700X. So to actually beat that is pretty impressive, and for basically what would be the same price. Next we'll take a look at Fortnite. So this is the ultra wide options here with the Nvidia optimized DirectX 11, for some reason, it wants to use DirectX 11 for the Nvidia optimized. It is what it is, so average frame rate 123 FPS, minimum frame rates 77.9, our maximum frame rate 143.5, 1% lows of 29.8, and our 0.1% lows of 4 FPS. Yep, this is Fortnite, that is to be expected. Moving on to the 4K results. So again, Nvidia optimized, DirectX 11, yep, still don't get it. Average frame rate 75.3, minimum frame rate 51.5, maximum frame rate 87.7, 1% lows of 22 FPS, and our 0.1% lows of 9.3. Now clearly this appears to be where Nvidia have either dropped the ball, or because the graphics card is so new and it's not technically released yet, that they haven't optimized the GeForce experience for this title. Be interesting to see how this pans out after the card's officially been on the market for a short while. Hopefully this will improve, and maybe they'll even consider using DirectX 12. Wouldn't that be nice? So next we'll take a look at Microsoft Flight 2020. This is in the ultra wide resolution, Nvidia optimized, this time actually adding DLSS 3 and FrameGen, and also DirectX 12. So clearly they've had a little bit of input on this one. Average frame rate a whopping 162.5 FPS, minimum frame rate 119.3, maximum frame rate 197.6, 1% lows of 88.7, and our 0.1% low frame rate of 38.6. An absolutely silky smooth experience. This is one of those games which really does show off how well DLSS works in conjunction with frame generation. When it's all done and it works together in tandem, it feels absolutely amazing. A very, very smooth experience. And luckily, exactly the same can be said for the 4K results. Again, Nvidia optimized settings from the GeForce experience using DLSS and frame generation. Average frame rate 145 FPS, minimum of 128.7, maximum frame rate 163.5, 1% lows of 119.6, and our 0.1% low frame rate of 50.3. This particular level in Toronto, not the most busy going on, if I'm completely honest with you, but it does have dynamic sky, dynamic lighting, all that kind of stuff. Again, still silky smooth, and actually made it easier to play the game, or simulation, however you want to look at it. Next up, again, alphabetical order. So now we're going to take a look at 3D Mark's Port Royal, and in which we scored 13,199 points, which seems to be a pretty decent outing here. And if we look at the comparison and seeing what other cards get in a similar kind of thing, so again, we are at 13,199, so better than 70% of all results, and it betters the GeForce RTX 4070, running with a Ryzen 7 7700X, which scored about 2,000 less points. So again, a very strong outing here for the ray tracing results, a decent jump in performance between the two. Okay, so let's take a look at something completely different now. So this is Rocket League, again, ultra wide resolution, the highest possible settings, so everything cranked. Average frame rate 409.6, minimum 300.9, maximum 495.7. That sounds insane. 1% low frame rate of 153.6 and a 0.1% low frame rate of 91.7. A fantastic experience, very low latency, runs like a dream, super slick, super smooth, and all the eye candy is turned on. And even though really this game isn't designed to be pretty, I think it really does look it, and I can't wait until they add RTX light into this. But for now, if we want to crank things up, we're going to have to resort to 4K resolution at the moment. So with that, we've got an average frame rate of 274.8, minimum frame rate of 217.8, maximum frame rate 354.9, so it's taken a bit of a hit there. 1% lows of 99.7 and our 0.1% lows of 69.8. Again, very nice, very enjoyable, plays like an absolute dream, really, really does. Next, we'll take another look at another synthetic. So this is 3D Mark's Timpespy, and we scored 19,092 points. And in the top left-hand corner there, you can see some of the stats, as you can do in all the games that we've done here. I should say as well, all of the footage you're seeing on the screen is from the 4K footage. So I didn't bother with the ultra-wide because ultra-wide looks very weird in YouTube videos, so I'm not showing that. All the footage you're seeing recorded is actually 4K in-game footage that has been recorded here. So again, CPU temperature on this actually 63 degrees thereabouts, and boosting in and around the sort of 2800 megahertz. We're using somewhere in the region of about 230, 240 watts at times. So it's a really good card, and considering how much wattage it's using, it is absolutely quite insane what they've managed to do here. And again, if we compare it with other scores, so we scored 19092. If you look at, again, the RTX 4070 paired with the Ryzen 7 7700X, we're looking at somewhere in the region of about 2,000 points difference. And again, this is better than 92% of all results. So we're actually pretty high up there. Very impressive. And again, realistically, what we're getting here is 4070 Ti kind of scores, but with a 4070 priced card. This is the super value here. It really is. Next, we'll take a look at War Thunder. This is one which gets asked for quite a lot. I'm not too sure. I still don't really know how to play this, so do excuse the gameplay, but I'm doing my bit. War Thunder in the ultra-wide resolution, so 3440 by 1440p. Nvidia optimized settings, average frame rate 285.4 FPS, minimum frame rates 236.5, maximum frame rate 336.4, 1% lows of 115.1, and our 0.1% lows of 35.3. I would say it's a silky smooth experience, but with my gameplay it probably isn't. Anyway, let's take a look at the 4K results and see how much of an effect that has on things overall. So 4K Nvidia optimized, average frame rate 192.4 FPS, minimum frame rate 148.9, maximum frame rate 311.1, 1% lows of 81.7, and our 0.1% low frame rate of 36.2. Again, one of those games which looks really nice, and I'm pretty sure this is basically on just one step down from cinematic, which I think is like ultra high. I'm not an expert at this game. Let me know in the comments what you think it is. And this is going to be the last one for today. So this is Wreckfest. Again, starting off with the ultra wide settings. So our average frame rate here, 261.8. Minimum frame rate is 245.5. Our maximum frame rate, 253.0. 1% lows of 179.6, and our 0.1% low frame rate of 179.6. Also, very good. Extremely consistent results there. Very low latency, very playable. This game doesn't require a lot to run it. And again, this is running on the ultra settings, so this is basically the best it can look, and it sure does look nice. Although currently it's got snow everywhere, which spoils it a little bit, but it's winter. What else can you do? Looking at the 4K ultra settings, so average frame rate 192.4, minimum frame rate of 155.4, maximum 225 dead, 1% lows of 158.2, and 0.1% low frame rate of 147.7. So that is what you're going to get if you're running this at 4K at ultra with everything cranked right up. Okay, so there you go. There are the results. Let me know what you think. That is all we can say. My recommendations, realistically, looking at what we've seen come out, so this card, or this range, the 4070 Super, being released at $600, or what we think is going to be £580 here in the UK, I think it offers fantastic value for money. It's essentially your kind of a whiskers width away from being a 4070 Ti, which previously was selling for in and around £800 mark, sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less. But essentially you're kind of getting what is almost an £800 card in performance for around about £600. So there's really a lot to like about this, and you're getting the improvements in performance, the improvements in the actual process as well. So all those things are coming together. Now there is the other side of the equation where these cards are just ridiculously overpriced to begin with. I hear you, I'm with you entirely, and it still seems absolutely bizarre to spend £650 on a graphics card. But having said that, if you are someone who is playing games and it is your hobby, you enjoy doing it, it is your thing, you don't go to the pub drinking, hey, you got to spend your money on something. And alternatively, if you're a content creator, this is basically your bread and butter. This is what is making your videos, recording your footage, streaming your gameplay. It's an investment. So it's not like this is like a toy that goes into a lower end PC. This is a bread and butter type graphics card. So it's an investment in you, it's an investment in your future, and it's an investment in your PC. And that's the way I like to see it. Obviously, let me know what you think about this one in the comments section below. But I think to summarize, I think this is a step in the right direction. It's not perfect, obviously. We would love to see it considerably cheaper because of the way the world is, but that isn't the case. It's 2024, everything's a little bit of a mess, and graphics cards are still quite expensive, but I definitely think this is a step in the right direction. It'd be interesting to see what the 5000 series brings us. But if you are looking at buying a 4070 Super, I think the MSI one is probably going to be one of the better choices, especially this particular one, the Gaming X Slim, because it covers all the bases. It doesn't use a tremendous amount of power. Also, because of its slimness, it's going to fit anywhere you want it to. Doesn't use a lot of power at the same time, so 240 watts or so is quite easy to dissipate even in smaller chassis. And, well, it looks bloody lovely, I think, in my opinion. But obviously, that is my opinion. Please do let us know what you think about this one in the comments section below. And specifically, what do you think about this gaming range of the Slim Gaming? I think it's actually a really good idea. Graphics cards are getting so big and bulky. It's a refreshing change to see something super powerful, super sleek, and actually a relatively decent price. That's the thing. Anyway, that's it. I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.